We got nothing better to do than watch TV and have a couple of brews.
And record a podcast.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
welcome to the edge of nowhere. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this 35th episode of the Monster Lore Tour Paranormal Deep Dives from the Edge of Nowhere podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Carr, here along with my co-host and the pebbles to my bam bam, Mr. Matt O0, a.k.a. the Moz. How we doing today, Moz?
no complaints.
I went with the Flintstones theme because we're talking about
I saw that.
big extinct lizard things like dinosaurs, I think, sort of, right?
Yep. I've always have a Dino before I go to bed.
I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about today, but I have an idea.
Nice. That's more than usual.
But before I let you tell us fully, I got some old business from Bat Squatch we still have to cover. We skipped over it on the interview in the previous episode. So this is from episode 33, Bat Squatch Old News. I did forget one thing, our best defense. I haven't done a lot of monster episodes. I forgot we're supposed to do a best defense against the monster we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So best defense against Bat Squatch. I'm going to go with Storm from the X-Men. Ask me why.
Because she'll just blow them all away.
And hit them with lightning and stuff. Yeah, just hit them with lightning while they're flying around. No worries.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect, right?
That's good. Did I do mine?
What's yours?
I don't know. Am I supposed to do it
now?
now?
I thought just the host did it because we don't want to use. You can only use everybody once.
Oh yeah. But so what if you really want to participate?
We already used Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, like the biggest wastes.
We didn't lose Bruce Lee, did we?
Didn't we? I thought we did.
We just watched Bruce Lee play ping pong with nunchucks. So I'm going to bring Bruce Lee to fight Bat Squatch with ping pong and nunchucks. Because we just watched it last night. It's pretty.
If anyone could kill a Bat Squatch with ping pong balls, it would be Bruce Lee.
Now we've used Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee.
Okay.
We're dumb.
Anywho, and on a little more serious note, you also asked about the fossil record for flying mammals. Not too long ago, 2017, they discovered a new oldest, what they call flying mammal, which everything I can find, it turns out they really just glide.
Yeah.
Which to me is not the same thing, but
Controlled
they talk
crash.
about it like it's the same thing. It's weird. But the Volaticotherium, that is the name of a 164 million year old fossil that was discovered in 2017. The Volaticotherium antiquum, meaning ancient gliding beast, according to Wikipedia.
Nice.
So that's the oldest. We got a 164 million year old gliding mammal, which means the actual flying mammals, which they do say probably did exist at some evolutionary stage, would have happened a good bit even before that. So you're going way back to like really the time of dinosaurs, if it happened at all.
Well, it goes back to at least Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah, there you go. Flying squirrel. See, really just glides though.
Yeah, it's not flying. It's control.
It really kind of bugs me. That's that's something stuck in my craw from this whole Bat Squatch thing is flying mammal, gliding mammal. It's not the same thing, but everything that says flying, it turns out they just glide.
Yeah.
And I can't even really figure out, was there ever actually flying mammals outside of just this bat family that we know evolved from a similar ancestor? Mm-hmm. So it's tough. I'm going to have to find like a full-on scientist for that branch of the. I don't even know who to talk to. Some bat expert, flying mammal expert of some kind. Yeah. But we just interviewed an astrophysicist.
Yeah,
so
we can pull something.
Yeah. My confidence is up. We're going to get some cool interviews in the future here. Season 2, hopefully we up our game a little bit. But anywho, that's it for my old business. You got anything else lingering there that you know of, Moss?
No, I do have good news. There's no prerequisites today. This is just me talking about a giant lizard. So
nice.
I'm pretty excited to just relax and not talk about, too much theory and depth psychology, and just talk about a giant lizard that likes to eat people.
Nice. That sounds like fun. Well, before I let you take over the reins here, I'm going to take a quick second to ask everybody to take a quick second to hit all those happy little fun buttons on whatever platform you're on, like, subscribe, share with a friend kind of stuff. Rate and review if you have an extra few more seconds beyond that. We would really appreciate it. Helps with the algorithms and everything else. Lets us know how we're doing, what you want more of and less of. Okay, now you can go, Moz.
So the location today, I want to start there. We're going to be focusing mostly on Australia today. We're going to be looking for a giant lizard known as Megalania. He's shown up on some towns and some territories scattered across predominantly the eastern region of Australia, including the Moruya district, Moruya, New South Wales and northern Queensland, the towns of Rockport, Taree, Kempsey, Cape Tree, Cessnock, as well as the Blue Mountains, and the Watagon mountain range, as well as a couple of others. So we're going to be kind of,
So is that more northeast Australia then?
It's along the coast and the south. It's basically
east and south.
Yeah, if you had to do it, but most of them are on the eastern side, and it does kind of range across much of the eastern part of the continent.
Cool.
So, and there's a lot of scattered sightings. And the 70s were the big flap, which was kind of a surprise to me, where most of these come from. I don't know if that's the introduction of, maybe some type of drug that people were doing at that time. I don't. That's
the
a
advent
theory.
of LSD, Moz? Is that what we speak of?
We can talk about, Albert Hoffman. We'll talk about that in theories probably more. But
honestly, though, if there was ever going to be a truly giant lizard thing, I would bet on Australia.
Yeah.
That would be my bet.
Yeah.
If you're going to get bigger than the Komodo, where better than Australia?
Yeah, and I thought New Zealand would have something. I talked to someone from New Zealand recently, and there are guardian lizards there, and there's definitely some large ones were supposed to be there, but there's not a lot of monsters in New Zealand.
Yeah,
not a lot of even poisonous things.
Yeah, they all stayed in Australia somehow, but to me it's the desert with the lizard thing. The Australia is mostly the outback.
Yeah.
Where better for a giant lizard to hide than the outback?
No argument. But they seem to be in the jungles as well. We seem to see them
Oh, true. You said
around.
they were up in the mountains and everything too, huh?
Mountains, jungles, and deserts.
Interesting. So they're very multi-territoried.
Yeah, they're multi-something. But there are other big lizards reported through oral traditions from New Zealand to Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. Komodo Island, of course, in Indonesia, is an ethno-known critter, what we recently found, the Komodo dragon. But Megalania is the main, going back to the fossil record, not a ton of bones, but they have kind of recreated this thing, only supposed to have died off 40,000 years ago.
Oh, that's pretty recent.
Which means some of the Aboriginals definitely ran into this thing, and it is depicted in their petroglyphs, giant lizards and hunters. So, and there's a lot of controversies as to how old these things are. A lot of them say, 10,000. Rex Gilroy, who's the main Megalania guy from the past, we'll get into him, but he says some of them can be as old as 3,000 years old. I mean, as young, as recent as 3,000. So, and we'll get to that. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. But this means Megalania could have definitely survived the last ice age, or only died out at the last ice age.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Along with all that other megafauna, the dire wolf, the giant sloth, the Mapangwari, and then the woolly mammoth, the snuffleupagus, all those guys around that same time period.
You can't kill the snuffleupagus, man.
Well, we didn't.
He's imaginary.
Sightings have continued on this one street to today.
You can't kill imagination.
Yeah.
That's the beautiful part of it.
Oh, I think that astrophysicist friend of ours really tried. He tried to kill my imagination.
He was giving it a specific use.
Yeah, and he did well.
Yeah, no, I mean it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I didn't, and that's what happens.
We rarely do here at Monster Laboratory.
But the reports of Megalania are few and far between. We're going to try to get to a lot of them today. There are some hoaxes kind of mixed up there as well, but we don't know how big these giant known species of lizards do get in the outback. I always harken back to that Hogzilla when you see a giant, something that's much larger than it should be, a 900-pound wild boar. It always makes me wonder. I mean, the stingrays they find in the Mekong River are monstrous. The catfish that, Jeremy Wade pulls out are monstrous. So what's the biggest actual lizard running around in the outback? We don't know.
Yeah.
So I think they're pretty ginormous, the ones we even come across. And yes, people tend to see something and they say it's bigger because it scared them. And we're not very good when we're running for our lives determining how big something was depending on where it was sometimes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've seen condors fly by. Like, whoa, that bird's huge.
Right.
If you asked me, what was the wingspan?
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't know, dude. The thing was just huge. Like,
yeah.
You could say, was it 10 feet? Was it 15 feet? I don't know, dude. It's, you're not really sure exactly how far away it is. When it looks so much bigger than what you're used to, you could definitely expand that in your mind. Like, their 9-foot wingspan could easily look like 15.
There's a guy on Monster Quest who's always kind of debunking what people saw. And one time he took a kite, with the wings, and he said how, he tried to get people to guess what the wingspan was of the kite. And the higher it goes, the worse off people are, obviously.
Right.
And an owl, when it was side of the road, people guessing. And the ranges, a lot of people guessed actually fairly well. But there were definitely some who were like, oh, that was 6.5 feet. It was a 3.5-foot owl by the side of the road, and people are saying 6-7 feet.
Right.
So there's obviously some folks who, it gets bigger in their brain.
That's why crowd verification is a good thing.
Well, sometimes those references really help. We're going to talk about one example where the lizard, well, no, this one wouldn't work. I thought it was a log, but it turned out to be a lizard. So, yes, it's just a bunch of people guessing how big they thought the log was. That's a bad example. Never mind. The reference point got them walked away, so they couldn't measure it later.
Wow.
So never mind that one. But I started a new one, Living in Large or Titanic in Toast. Instead of our usual, largest known species and largest fossil record, it's going to be, we need a bumper for that, too. I mean,
boy.
You've had 3 seconds notice.
I just made a new bumper.
Yeah, it was very good.
Wait, what kind of bumper do we need?
Living in Large or Titanic and Toast. So it's the one that's still alive and the one from the fossil record.
Yeah. Titanic and Toast. I just got it. Okay.
Yeah. I'm hitting you with it now.
Sounds like something you'd order at brunch.
Yeah.
Can I get a Titanic and Toast, please?
Yeah. I get that sinking feeling.
Is there a drink called the Titanic? There's got to be a drink called the Titanic, right?
Yeah. Living in Large today, there are 27 different species of lizard in Australia. Sizes range from 20 centimeters to over 2 meters, or 2 plus, as we said. And the largest specimen of Parenti, by some accounts, tops even that. Biggest in the world goes to the Komodo dragon of Komodo Island, of course, a real bona fide monster discovered in 1912 on an expedition led by W. Douglas Burden. Some of the ones he caught reached the 10-foot mark. Since then, they rarely seem to top 9 feet. Again, Monster Quest went and tried to find one that topped, and they couldn't even find. I don't think they even found a 9-footer. But the Parenti of Australia is almost as large. So if there's a larger one out there, it's going to be a monster, folks, is the reality.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's ask the Aborigines, man. They're the only ones who really know the outback at all. And, and even they might not know just how big some of those things might get.
Yes. Titanic and Toast, we have of course, Megalania, our quarry today. It's a giant lizard that made its home in Australia long ago, but as I said, only went extinct 40,000 years ago. Richard Owen is credited with the discovery of Megalania in 1959. The fossil evidence suggests it resembles a goanna-like lizard, but a much, much larger variety. Owen's named the largest lizard from the fossil record, Megalania prisca, Greek for great ancient roamer.
Ooh.
Prisca to me means primal because Prisca theologia, so I don't get that word breakdown. I couldn't figure that out, but I didn't want to spend a ton of time on that.
Well, that can mean the ancient part as well.
Yeah. Well, Prisca, it was just the Prisca meant primal, so I didn't know. I guess that could be the ancient part. Yeah, good point. You just solved it. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
The fossil evidence is scarce for this beastie. Size estimates vary from website to website, but I like this one from Megalania prisca, dragon of the Australian outback.
Ooh.
Lack of enough fossil material has made it very hard to determine the exact dimensions of Megalania. Conservative estimates place the length of the largest individuals at a little over 7 meters, 23 feet, with a maximum conservative weight of approximately 4,268 pounds.
Wow.
Average size specimens would have been a leaner but still impressive 704 pounds. Megalania was the largest land-dwelling lizard to have ever lived, and a fearsome predator as well as a scavenger.
Wow.
Some sources estimate even bigger, by the way, 40 foot, 8,300 pounds.
Oh my
They've tended
God.
to scale
That's a
that
full-on
back.
dinosaur.
It's a bus. It's a bus.
That's a full-on dinosaur.
So 40,000 years ago, not that long ago, bus-sized lizard, maybe, kind of.
So there's why people say that there were still dinosaurs around with humans. Because if that thing was alive 40,000 years ago, that counts as a dinosaur to me if it was really that big.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
And just 40,000 years ago,
yeah.
Wow.
And they don't always, they change those things constantly. They don't know exactly when they died. They have a few vertebrae of this thing and part of a claw. I mean,
well, it's like my old business there for the fossil record. Up until 2017, the oldest one was like 90 million years old. And then all of a sudden they find two of them that are over 160 million years old.
Right.
And
changes it.
It almost doubled the age of the oldest one we knew of.
Yeah.
So,
yep. The fossil record is incomplete.
And fossils are tough because if it's only very specific places where things will fossilize. Yeah. So if something doesn't live in a place that ever was one of those places that will fossilize something, then you're not going to have any fossils of it.
Right.
Who's to say how many things we have no idea even existed?
Yeah. Yeah, we've got we're just beginning this deep dive into the Earth's crust.
Oh, yeah, we know nothing yet.
Oral traditions, I hope to know less by the end of it. That's what we're here to do.
Every question just makes more questions, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't, an answer is just more questions.
Well,
usually.
every question makes more jokes for us, really. We should,
fair.
Or both. Oral traditions of Megalania are scarce, so I tried taking some of the few modern-day sightings and then looked up the folklore of the specific tribes involved, like the Darumbal, the Bayali, etc. Nothing, not a nix, jugling tribes netted nothing. And you shouldn't try to catch a Megalania with a net, by the way. Probably bad idea.
8,000 pounds potentially. That's
but I think
crazy.
There are some really good Aboriginal books that I would have to buy to look into this. Maybe we'll get a hold of something and always put it on the wish list and see if we can come back to it. But trying to juggle it, there's just not a lot out there. Or maybe I didn't do my due diligence, but I feel like I did. I looked up a lot of specific tribes, a lot of specific areas. Not a lot of that folklore is like Internet Archive available kind of thing.
Really recorded and readily available. Yeah.
So consider becoming a Patreon member, and we'll procure some of these books. I mean, that's another reason to kind of join and contribute, because we don't, we will use those funds to further our knowledge.
I have a couple of books that cost like $100.
Yeah,
that I want to buy specifically just because of the podcast.
Yeah, if we can't get it for paperback on Amazon for under $10, we're losing out on some knowledge sometimes.
Our deep dives could get even deeper.
Yep. There are numerous myths.
Patreon.com/monsterlore tour, by the way. Patreon.com/monsterlore tour.
Thank you, sir. There are numerous myths and oral traditions involving a number of large lizard-like creatures scurrying about both Australia and New Zealand, but again, hard to find those original accounts. You have the Maori occupying New Zealand. It's sketchy kind of when they got there. I was surprised to find that it's supposed to be very recent, like 1250 or 1300, AD kind of stuff.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't know. I don't think they know. I don't believe that. I have to kind of look into it deeper, but that's the information I found. Huh. When you look at the Aboriginals, you're talking about they were there for 50,000 years. Yeah. So 10,000 years they might have shared that continent with bus-sized lizards. And then New Zealand, I think it's just an unknown.
Where my mind goes with this.
Yeah.
Did they ride them? Were they able to ride them?
Wow.
I want, have you seen the show Primal?
Yes. Oh, Primeval?
No, just Primal. It's pretty new.
Yeah,
it's the animated one with the caveman guy
No,
and the dinosaur.
The movie. No.
We're going to watch that tonight after we record.
There we go. Fun fact.
Yeah. But it makes me think of that. Like maybe they harnessed the power of these lizards to ride across the outback or something.
There you go. As for our global lizard mythos roll call, here's a couple from outside Oceania. Predominantly, we'll be talking about Australia and New Zealand today, or actually Australia. But Indonesia pops up. The Solomon Islands pop up. Oh, we got to get some of this. But before we get there, I wanted to hit a couple in our neck of the woods. Giant lizards from our side of the railroad tracks. Sure. The Chenoo, Chenoo, in North America, and from Algonquin folklore, I found a giant lizard conjured by a shaman. Here's an excerpt. It's the only time I'm going to say shaman today, I promise.
Maz, you just can't help yourself.
No,
man.
I'm not. They're not theories, believe me. We're shaman-free, virtually. You can edit this part out if it makes you feel better.
No, it's fine. You got to have your gratuitous shaman moment.
But there's G.C. Leland's work from 1884. Then the Chenoo stripped himself and danced around the spring his magic dance. And soon the water began to foam, and anon to rise and fall, as if some monster below were heaving in accord with the steps in the song. The Chenoo danced faster and wilder. Then the head of an immense Tiktaalik, or lizard, rose above the surface. The old man killed it with a blow of his hatchet. Dragging it out, he began to dance. He brought out another, the female, not so large, but still heavy as an elk. They were small spring lizards, but the Chinook had conjured them. By his magic, they were made into monsters.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
You got one of those. Shamans and monsters. Imagine that in one of my episodes. But here's one you might not have heard of, the Crosswick monster. Believe it or not, Ohio has a giant lizard. It's the
Ohio?
Yeah. This is from Un-loch, the Mysteries of Ohio's Cryptids.
That is not a place I would think of when I think giant lizard.
I think I've come across this one, but not often. It's kind of a single, flap one and done. Like it was a single event, but there were some more than one witness. Despite having only been seen once, the Crosswick monster really made its mark in Ohio cryptid history. In 1882, 2 boys were attacked by a vicious 12 to 14 foot long lizard that was eventually chased by the men of the village. Despite their hunt, the townspeople were unable to track the lizard down, and he was never seen again. You learn more about the monsters when you visit Warren County. Stop by the Harmon Museum and Art Gallery and check out its recreated 1880s town square, which is around the same time of the sightings of the cryptids first began. That again from Un-loch, the Mysteries of Ohio's Cryptids. Will be in the show notes as usual. Yeah, so there's Algonquin, Ohio. We got some lizards here too.
The townspeople were chasing it like Frankenstein's monster too. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and to come up with it's a kind of a Gloucester moment where a town is describing something and they're all saying 12 to 14 feet. It's a pretty big lizard, and if you're chasing it, you're going to be fairly close to accurate. This isn't.
It's not up in the air like a bird. It's
not up in the air or in the water. You're chasing it through the woods. And again, to never see it again, why would we not see something this large again? That's the part, of course, no one would.
That is
Scully
interesting.
Mogul would take exception at.
Maybe a Godzilla kind of thing. It's primarily a water creature and rarely comes up on land. Maybe it just came up to lay some eggs or something.
Yeah, that's that for theories. We can, I think we shovel that over that way.
Yeah.
But let's get down under or into the bush for a walkabout. Do you ever go walkabout, Jerem, by the way?
I'm an American, so I go drive about.
Oh, there you go.
I've literally gotten in the car with friends and said, let's drive till we get lost.
Nice.
And managed it. The thing is, after you do that a few times, you stop being able to get lost.
Yeah.
So now I have to be like, let's go that way.
Yeah. For a while, yeah. I did walkabout back in the day and pre-cell phone, and yeah, there's some tales to
total pre-cell phone. Nothing but a paper map kind of thing. Get in your car with nothing but a paper map and just go.
There you go. And then there's back down under here now, we have the Whowie, Whowie.
Whowie.
Yeah, exactly. The Aboriginal mythos story of the Whowie is one such tale that parallels Megalania. The myth tells of a group of animals that work together to gang up on this beastie or a variation thereof. This comes to our first reading from Universal Myths by Alexander Eliot.
The Whowie was more than 20 feet long. He had 6 legs and a wide-jawed head like a lizard's. He was swift but silent, for all his bulk. And he would swallow up quantities of animals as they slept. He lived in a cave on a riverbank in the Riverina district, all alone. Other creatures of the area hated and feared him. The water rats did so especially, because the Whowie subsisted largely upon them and their children. Eventually, the water rats called a general meeting of the animals, at which they suggested a broad alliance of forces and war to the death against the Whowie. Kangaroos, possums, and platypuses responded bravely. The animals crept up to the entrance of the cave, where the Whowie slept during the day. They stacked bundles of reeds and firewood around the cave mouth. They lit the fire. The Whowie awoke. They could hear him choking on the smoke inside the cavern, shaking the rock. For 6 days and nights they piled on more firewood. The Whowie, penned in by the constant flames, lashed about in agony. The sound coming from inside the hill were those of mighty combat, but the Whowie had nothing to fight except the smoke and heat. On the 7th day, the Whowie terminated his own torture by charging directly into the fire. He exploded out through it, stone-blind and scorched black. The animals pounced. In their hundreds they surrounded him, biting and scratching. They forced him slowly into the river, and then held his head under until he drowned.
So I wanted to start off with more of an Aboriginal myth, but there's, it's incorporated in the myth that there's these giant lizards running around. And again, we just said how most of it is on the eastern side. So of course we have a southwestern story to start with, just to,
this almost, when you get into mythology, it's allegory and whatnot. It's a story hidden within a story. What if this is a story of a giant that the people killed? Because the giant was eating the people and the people's children. They turned it into animals to make it more digestible so they could teach their children the tale.
More digestible? Did you do that on purpose? Dang, dude.
I didn't. These things just happen in my brain. I think it just connects words sometimes.
Yep. Well, no, I really want to just get to the mythos piece of it. But yeah, it's open for interpretation. But the Whowie had all these variations of, it does come up in other Aboriginal myths.
Right.
It's something that does exist as a kind of a character from the past. Kind of like the bunyip. Have you heard of the bunyip?
Yeah.
That is more of one of these things that waits by the side of the water and comes out. Sometimes, in some of the depictions, it looks like a lizard face. But it changes. A lot of times it's more rodent-like. The Wowies, there's all kinds of descriptions. The bunyip, there's all kinds of descriptions. So we're going to kind of move towards more lizard, but this stuff's back there.
Kind of like with Bat Squatch, where we moved away from the lizard. Now we're moving toward the lizard.
Moving towards the lizard, exactly. But let's move to the Lothar Goon, LATHARR-GHUN. The Lothar Goon of Litchfield National Park in the Northern Territory. Let's go start this one off. Another reading for you from conversation.com.
Can I just say that Lothar Goon sounds like a Sith Lord name from Star Wars?
You may.
I am Lothar Goon. The traditional custodians of the land under which the Lothar Goon roams, the Micmac Maranangu people, told anthropologist Joanne Thurman how it can pop up through soft soil and pull you down with it. Wild. The Micmac Maranangu know how to recognize the sound signaling its approach. They say they learned how to calm the Lothar Goon from the old people. It's imperative to stand very still while announcing in the local language that one belongs to the land. Slinging some sweat in the direction of the Lothar Goon also helps, as that way it can smell that one is from here. Reminds me of Dune. They're like sandworms.
There you go. I was thinking tremors, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Did you know you're never more than 3 degrees from a tremor worm?
2 degrees from Kevin Bacon.
Oh, so
6 degrees from Kevin Bacon. Now you're no more than 2 degrees from anyone in the world because of the internet, supposedly.
I used to be like in the 90s, I was cool. I knew someone who knew someone of Kevin Bacon, but everything has to ruin everything for me.
Yeah. Now everyone knows someone who knows Kevin Bacon because of the internet.
Dang.
It's those Facebook friend things.
Yeah.
People you know that you don't even really know.
There
You're
you
connected to everybody now, man.
So what do you think, Lathargoon? We got something that's waiting for you. We'll drag you under the ground, lizard-like.
Oh, did I have more to read here? There's a little bit more for me to read here. Hold on. Ooh. Put differently, the danger the Lathargoon poses can be mediated by custodians only. In the context of a contested land over which Aboriginal mining, pastoral, and national park interests clash, the Lathargoon becomes a strong, if dangerous, ally.
So it sounds more like a land guardian spirit.
Yeah,
they
totally.
show up in these places. The Kataika of New Zealand, the Mo'o of, I don't know how to say that, but it's the M-O, Doohickey-O of Hawaii. There's kind of a black guardian lizard as well there, just to name a couple.
The Mo'o.
The Mo'o. And there's also, if you add dragons to that mix, there's a million. Like there's the Kirin from Japan, which is also beer, which is cool because you can drink and then drain the dragon.
Wait, the Kirin is a giant lizard?
That's what it means.
What is Ichiban? Kirin Ichiban.
Ichiban.
Old business.
Old business. I think it's just a teppanyaki place myself, but, But anthropologist Yasmin Mashabus adds that the Lathargoon was supposed to live in the caves of northern Australia. She describes it as a big, black, scaly dragon that was much more dangerous than the small goannas it resembled. Not that she saw this, she's just an anthropologist who likes to talk monsters. Hope to get her on.
So that's a similar thing, giant black-scaled version of it.
Yeah. And again, there's a lot of overlap. Dragon, lizard, of course. And we're going to jump away from mythic very quickly. We're going to try to get to more of the giant lizards roaming around.
Yeah.
We're not going to spend as much time in the mythos.
Well, we got to do our deep dive properly. This is Monster Lore Tour.
This is true.
We need to do all the lore of the monster.
That is true. And this one is the Mungoongali, MUNGOON-GALI. And that is your third reading. And this from good old-fashioned Wikipedia.
Mungoongali, MUNGOON-GALI, also transcribed as Mungoongarlee, MUNGOONGARLEE, is a giant goanna from Uwaalarae mythology who terrorized the local people with his venomous bite and voracious appetite. Afraid the tribes would soon be wiped out by the constant attacks, Auyubalui, the black snake, offered to steal the hidden poison bag from Mungoongali, for in those days it was lizards instead of snakes that were venomous. He waited until the goanna was resting after a large meal before offering to reveal the tribe's secret plot in exchange for being allowed to hold the poison bag for his own safety. Mungoongali, reluctant but determined to learn of the plot against him, took the poison bag from his mouth and handed it to Auyubalui, who placed it in his own and fled, easily outpacing the still sluggish reptile. On returning to the tribes, Auyubalui refused to destroy the bag and instead retreated into the bush, which explains how snakes became venomous and lizards, like the ferocious Mungoongali, lost their bite.
And that tribe that was difficult to pronounce, the Yawalare, or however, you were saying it.
Yeah, lots of A's in that. I said it almost like you did, I think.
It's Yuwaalaraay, and they're Aboriginals predominantly in northwestern New South Wales. They're Australian Aboriginals again, facing some monstrous reptiles. We also have the rainbow serpent. The rainbow serpent is a deity from the area that sometimes gets tied into any large snake or lizard sighting. Aboriginal people saw this serpent as both mother goddess or chaos bringer, depending on the situation. It's kind of D&D reminiscent a little bit.
Yeah.
One time the rainbow serpent fought the Dirawong, Dirawong, a gender-ambiguous protector being and relative of the goanna. This beast has a proto-preternational flair as it taught people how to live on the land.
Oh, so Promethean again.
There you go. There's an area of red ochre at Goanna Headland is believed to be the blood of Dirrawong after the rainbow serpent took a bite out of it. So they got this big, monstrous lizard fight from the old mythos.
It's like a Godzilla movie or something.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like Dirrawong versus Mecha Dirrawong.
Oh, yeah. I want to see that.
Mm-hmm. Rainbow serpent leads into this dreaming component associated with Australia and giant lizards. Some of this gets dream symbology-like.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then we have the Tjukurrpa, Tjukurrpa. As usual, we're probably not pronouncing that right, but that means the dreaming. These giant lizards and a host of other marvelous creatures and myths are all associated with the Aboriginal dreaming, also called Dreamtime or World Dawn, which is pretty cool.
Oh, yes. I've heard of this.
Yeah, this gets into a different subject, and it's very shamanic, and we might do an episode on it someday.
We should someday.
Yeah.
Not now, but yeah.
Right. This is just a taste.
Yeah.
Just a bite out of Dirrawong.
Is that what we're having for Wolfman Park?
That's what we're doing for Wolfman Park today. There's your only hint. But the dreaming as a coordinated system of belief and action includes totemism. Together they express a close relationship. Man is regarded as part of nature, not fundamentally dissimilar to the mythic beings or to the animal species, all of which share a common life force. The totem serves as an agent, placing man within the dreaming and providing him with an indestructible identity that continues uninterruptedly from the beginning of time to the present and into the future. That from the dreaming, Australian Aboriginal mythology, Britannica, and again, that's the Tjukurrpa.
This sounds very shaman and yak.
Yeah, totemy and yeki.
Yeah, totemy, yeki.
Yeah.
Very shamanic, but just Aboriginal style shamanism going on here is what it feels like.
Shaman, astrally, symbology, monsters, it's kind of all there, and it's all very mythic, but it's all very important to the people, to the land, and to their upbringing. And of course, what happens when we go into dreams? What happens when we go into bettering ourselves? What happens when we go to try to help the tribe? What happens when we try to find knowledge? We run into monsters.
Yeah.
All the time.
The guardians of the knowledge, the guardians of the portals and the gates you have to go through to get the knowledge.
Yeah, there's always dragons over gold, but there's always dragons curled up over books as well, you know?
Yeah.
This theme is like Eliot's Myth of the Eternal Return. Do you ever read that? Sacred time, kind of always returning back to that same thing. If you ever get a chance, Mircea Eliot definitely should be on your reading list.
Okay.
This from Nadia Phillips. The Tjukurpa is the basis of all Aboriginal knowledge. It is a complex, all-encompassing belief system that defines religion, law, and moral systems for Australia's Indigenous people. It comes from their ancient ancestors who created and brought life to the earth during what non-Indigenous people know as Dreamtime or the Dreaming. Dreamtime symbolizes the birth of existence for Aboriginal people, and the stories are the creationist myth of Aboriginal Australians. The stories of the dreaming tell of how all living things descend from the Dreamtime ancestors, the Tingari, and how they shaped the earth. They are the ancient ancestors of every Aborigine today.
That just brought me back to my theory. Was that Hollow Moon where I did that? That we're all just God's dream? I think that was my Ahu Guano and the Hollow Moon episode 30, I believe. But it sounds like the Aborigines think we're just somebody's dream.
Yeah, and that's
like we were created by a dreamscape.
Yeah. I think what I said on that was, I always think of that Carlos Castaneda line or Don Miguel Ruiz talks about this too, but it's not, you're not dreaming the dreamer is dreaming you. It's
right.
One of those little,
we are the dream.
Yeah.
So what are our dreams? If we are somebody's dream and we dream, what are our dreams? Are we dreaming someone else who then actually exists in their own mind?
It's a yin-yang Einstein-Rosen bridge.
It's just dreams all the way down, Maz.
Yeah.
It's dreams all the way down.
Turtles all the way down. Like Gamera.
Yeah, you know where that turtle concept came from?
Hokkaido.
Somebody's dream. Somebody had a dream where the world was the giant turtle or being held up by the giant turtle, and then it became true because they dreamed it.
Yeah. And then became Discworld, according to Terry Pratchett.
Wow.
So that was from Nadia Phillips, Tjukurrpa, and the Tingari, Aboriginal knowledge, and ancient ancestors. Upon reading some more on this, sounds more like, astral projection or dream traveling. It's all that Good stuff that we'll get to at some point on this podcast. Getting a little Megalania adjacent, there is another reptoid reported to still be running around the outback, and it is called, Jeremy has to read this one. This is from RACV, the Burrinjor.
The Burrinjor.
He was in The Big Chill, wasn't he?
Burrunjor. Oh, Behringer. Also Major League. Very good movies. The Burrinjor. Giant lizard, small dinosaur, or feathered reptile? Question mark.
You be the judge.
That's how it starts. There have been conflicting descriptions of this giant reptilian indigenous cryptid, but documented sightings from the 1950s to the late 1980s describe the creature as walking on two legs, akin to a 20th century Tyrannosaurus rex. Local legend depicts Burrinjor, nicknamed by the Aboriginal peoples as Old Three Toes, as a nocturnal reptile that feasts on native animals like cattle and kangaroos, leaving monstrous footpaths and missing livestock in its wake. Most recent investigations have led to the belief that the lower outback, between South Australia and the Northern Territory, is home to a large lizard, the Parenti, which can grow up to 3 meters in length and devour animals as large as goats. In terms of good old three toes, no sightings have been documented in almost 40 years. Has the Burrinjor gone extinct, if it ever existed? Or is this just one of many dinosaurs said to have been found amongst Australia's fossil footprints?
That again from RACV.com.
That's interesting. Old three toes, I love it.
Well, that's I've heard of this one, and they do see these upright ones. They do have this three-toed things running around. There are a lot of, Australia's, like I said, it's a big desert.
Yeah, and there's lizards that run on two legs. Yeah. There's that one that runs across the water.
Yeah.
Yep. And whatnot, there's definitely examples of that in the lizard world where even iguanas, like when they're fighting, they'll get up on their back legs and stuff. So that's not too weird to hear that it might run by on two legs.
Gordon,
a giant lizard.
Gordon Gecko does that as well.
Yeah, he walks around two legs all the time.
Yep. Well, Megalania is not believed to be an aquatic beastie, but get this old legend. An Aboriginal myth is supposed to be only a few hundred years old, wherein a Megalania took a swim one day. So they saw this giant lizard. They don't give a size, but this is a 300-year-old story about thereabouts, colonial times. This lizard's going for a little swim. A great white shark attacks it to try to take a bite out of it. The Megalania grabs the shark, bites it, drags it up on the shore, and eats it. And people watch this thing.
Wow.
You can find this account on Megalania Giant Monitor Lizards at mythology.net in the show notes.
So it almost sounds like a giant sea iguana.
Yeah, a lot of lizards do
giant
swim.
Sea iguana.
Right. A lot of lizards do swim. This wasn't... I was thinking like a Megalodon versus Megalania would have a different outcome.
And there are lizards... A lot of them, they'll grow to their environment and their diet. If they have enough space to move around in and enough food to eat, they'll just keep growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
So who's to say, man? If you see them 9 feet long to begin with, who's to say one can't get 20 feet long every once in a while?
Yeah.
It's like the anacondas,
I think if there's one, and I always say this, there's probably one a couple of feet bigger than we found, and that is a big lizard. If they can get to be 9 or 10 and we find one that's 11 or 12, that is just a monstrous thing. And if you see it, you're going to be reporting a monster sighting.
Oh, yeah, totally. A 12-foot long lizard, dude, I would totally be calling newspapers.
Yeah.
Going on talk shows.
Yeah. Calling an exterminator, something.
Yeah. I got to call Oprah. Yeah. Somebody needs to interview me, Oprah.
Megalania is generally believed to be a terrestrial lizard, not aquatic, but even those accounts vary. We often find things more cryptoid than cryptid as well, and that back to our analogy if it's more shapeshiftery or it's more mythic or it's more has these off features. But giant lizard accounts are consistent. People report seeing ordinary lizards, but of LOUS proportions.
Lizards of unusual size.
Very good, sir. You got that one.
I believe in LOUSs.
I do believe in fairies. One of the coolest ones I came across in my research kind of ended badly. But here's one I found from Rhodesia Herald, July 15th, 1932. Found this account in Richard Freeman's book, In Search of Real Monsters. This event, quote-unquote, occurred on February 16th of that year, of 1932. Near some elephants deep in the jungles of Africa, he spots what the witnesses describe as a lizard 16 yards in length. He was only about 50 yards away at the time. Here's a short excerpt from the account of one J.C. Johnson, a Swedish dude. This from Richard Freeman's 2022 book, Adventures in Cryptozoology, Volume 2. Suddenly the monster vanished with remarkable rapid movement. It took me some time to recover. Alongside me the boy prayed and cried. I lifted him up, pushed him along, and made him follow me home. On the way home, we had to traverse a big swamp. The huge lizard appeared once more, tearing lumps from a dead rhino. It was covered with ooze. I was only 25 yards away. Unfortunately, that gem turned out to be a giant hoax. So that I was reading this, and I'm all excited. And I do remember. It's like one of those you remember. I do remember this now, and it was a hoax. But I was excited for few minutes to read that.
It's like when I found those flying monkey things. Yeah.
Well, that was just getting a hold of the wrong psychedelics.
I was really into it until it said the flying pigs, and then I was, they're totally pulling our leg right now.
Yeah, I was enjoying the Muppets until that part
story,
showed up, and then the pigs in space are there.
Yep.
Now let's move to the heart of the Megalania, which is typically located at a point 1/3 to 1/4 of its length, caudal to the head. No, that's where the heart's actually located. Here's the first rendition of these accounts from Megalania hunter Rex Gilroy. Be hearing a lot from him today. Most websites just rehash a lot of his findings, but I really, wanted to hunt the original Rex's original frontier gibberish, and I corrected some of his spelling. And old Rex has a lot of defunct and unsecure websites out there too, so just be careful. But just like the Komodo dragon, you die a few days later after the malware virus.
Yeah. We do some dangerous research here at MLT sometimes.
I've been on some obscure ones because of this place.
You got to be careful with that, Mus.
All kidding aside,
make sure your VPN's on when you do that.
He is the first, though. All kidding aside, Rex Gilroy, he's the big one. He's the first. He's like the Linda Godfrey to the Bray Road Beast. He's the Keel to Mothman. He's the Patterson or Gimlin to Bigfoot. He's kind of Mr. Megalania. Or Megalonia is what he says in some of it. It says in his websites. Yeah, well, that's what's in his websites.
Oh, it's just a big misspeller.
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't even want to say that. I don't know if that's what it was known at for a while.
Okay.
But old Rex is the mass synonymous. He's synonymous with Megalania, basically. If you find him, that's why he's going to be, I believe, the obvious choice for our Mad Cujos winner this week.
Oh, Mad Cujos.
Down boy!
Woohoo! But for this giant lizard of the Mad Cujos Award, Rex is the perfect name, too. I mean, not too bad.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Yeah, he kind of did that well.
Yeah, Megalania Rex.
Yes. Here's Rex's account from his article, Cessnock's Fantastic 30-Foot Lizard Monster. I added the possessive for Rex on this one because I got you back, Rex. But here's your reading from our first Rex Gilroy account, 1955.
Lodestone, 1955. At Lodestone, situated about 7 miles south of the Queensland border in far north coastal New South Wales, the locals can relate many similar stories of giant lizard incidents. One resident of the area, Mr. Stan Lamond, has a cedar forest on his property. During 1955, loggers moved in to work the area and soon became acquainted with 20 to 30 foot long giant monitors which inhabit the forests thereabouts. One occasion, a timber cutter came face to face with one of these monsters, which attacked him, grabbing one of his hands, where it bit off the last 2 fingers. Another logger coming to his assistance got close enough to drive a long railway spike through the beast's head. Mr. Lamond's property has often been frequented by giant monitors, and on more than one occasion, he has had to shoot some of his cattle because they had legs bitten off by the creatures. So afraid are the timber cutters of these monsters that they are in the practice of entering the forests in early morning and cut timber until early in the afternoon when they leave the forests, because they say the monstrous reptiles come out of hiding to roam the forests once day begins to end. Once they get all warmed up by the high sun, right?
Yeah, it's a different version of cattle mutilation, isn't it? It brings a whole new...
Yeah.
Not as
it's
surgical.
giant lizards doing
Giant
that
lizards.
stuff.
This is Enormous Lizard Timber Cutters from 1961. Again, this is another... We're going to go through all the Rex Gilroy counts.
You made fun of me for bringing in lumberjack stuff.
I did put a note to myself. Some of this stuff... At some point, there's a note that there's a little fearsome crittery...
Bit of fearsome crittery
stuff going on here. The story is told of 3 young timber cutters who, soon after being employed at a timber yard in May 1961, were sent into the remote part of the Wacope timber forests for the purpose of marking trees for future cutting. After marking many trees, the 3 sat down to a billy of tea on the edge of a formerly cleared area now covered in rotten fallen timber. The site was a couple of 100 yards inland from a dirt track on which stood their truck. Shortly after sitting down, they heard coming towards them across a cleared area some animal clambering up and over the fallen logs. Upon standing up to look over the expanse of fallen logs, one of the boys saw an enormous lizard approaching them. Hastily abandoning their campfire, they took fright and ran for the safety of the truck. Jumping inside, the boys watched as the creature came clambering down the embankment and onto the roadway, running across the track and into the surrounding forest. The boys all agreed that the creature stood a good 3 feet off the ground, its body girth was up to 2 feet or so, and that it was at least 30 feet in length.
Wow.
Shaken, they drove back to the timber mill and related their experience. They were told by older hands that such enormous lizards were long known to have inhabited the area.
And they're in there cutting down all the trees. Maybe that's why we don't see them anymore.
Yeah. Well, it is.
They were the Lorax.
Yeah, he speaks for the trees, right?
Right. That's why they're attacking the loggers.
Yeah. We could... The Lorax. I have to do a side trail on the Lorax.
Yeah.
Note to self.
That'd be a good
Day.
one, man.
We'll do him for Arbor Day.
Add that to your cartoon theory, yeah.
There you go. Next one's a Beenleigh, Southern Queensland, 1963 account.
Mrs. Carlson, her husband and children, of Katoomba, North South Wales.
That's it.
Were driving their Renault car on a bush road one very hot summer day in 1963 near Beenleigh, which lies between the Gold Coast and Brisbane in southern Queensland. The time was 2 p.m. when suddenly, in front of their car and from the right-hand side of the road coming down from an embankment, the Carlsons saw an enormous monitor lizard, which, as it ran across the track, forced the Carlsons to hastily put on the brakes. The beast stood a good 3 feet off the ground on its 4 legs. The road the Carlsons were driving on was only 10 feet wide. As the reptile reached the other side of the road, the Carlsons got a good look at its length. Its head was obscured by the bushes on the left-hand side of the road, while its tail was covered by shrubbery on the right-hand side. The creature was estimated to be well over 12 feet in length. Yeah, because if it's an iguana type, that tail is close to as long as the body sometimes.
Yeah.
So if the head is already in the bushes, the body takes up the 10-foot road, and that thing could be 20 feet long with the tail.
Yeah. Yep. And again, goanna is kind of, I would say they're pretty iguana-esque, I guess, looking at
Yeah, I mean, they're similar kind of creature, right?
Oh, yeah. This is a 27-foot-long lizard, 1974 account, a lot of 70s accounts. During the previous year of 1974, at least 10 detailed reports of giant lizard sightings were reported in Newcastle. One of these concerned Mr. Tony Harris of Newcastle, who, while walking through orange orchards in an area on the western side of the Watagan Mountains near the town of Tjukurrpa, saw a 27-foot-long lizard moving among the trees, feeding upon the fruit. Tales of sightings of these enormous reptiles are legendary throughout the district, especially among the timber cutters who have worked the forest thereabouts.
Yes, this is really consistent.
Yeah, a lot of 70s.
The size and the detail of them, the reports are all consistent. There's groups of people seeing it all at once, and yeah, I mean it's getting hard to deny.
But it's just Rex Gilroy getting these accounts together, and
I guess that's true.
I think in some ways maybe that, and again it's back to that fearsome critter. It's what the lumberjacks are saying out there,
right.
But if that was the known, they all think that's part of the lore out there.
Well, I mean that one I just read was just some family driving through.
Yeah,
and they saw it.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of other. We're not done with the accounts. Some of them have nothing to do with lumberjacks.
Yeah,
even though they're okay.
Yeah, it's getting more varied now.
Yep. Another account from 1974 from Mike Blake of Cessnock.
Mr. Mike Blake of Cessnock does not think Megalania is extinct. During 1974, he was sitting on his farmhouse veranda one day with his pickup truck parked right in front of the house, when from around the side of the farmhouse, one of these monstrous beasts walked around in front of his veranda between him and his truck. Mike remained terrified and glued to his chair, as he said later, while the enormous beast turned to look at him before moving on leisurely across a nearby paddock towards scrub. Mike compared the lizard's length to his utility pickup truck, which was 18 feet in length. The lizard was at least 20 feet long and stood 3 feet from the ground, consistently 3 feet high.
Yeah. And this is a 30-foot lizard account, 1975 as well. During the last week of December 1975, a Cessnock farmer, while tending cattle on his property, caught sight of one of these creatures moving in scrub near his barn. It was, he said, at least 30 feet in length and of mottled grayish color. Stood up to 3 feet off the ground and 4 powerfully built legs. And the next one is the Wadagans, again that mountain range from 1975.
One such and very amusing incident involving one of these creatures took place on a track deep in the Wadagans during 1975. 2 farmers happened to be driving their 4-wheel drive vehicle through the forests one morning. Ahead of them they saw what they thought to be a log, which must have fallen across the road. Alighting from their vehicle, they proceeded to lift the log and drag it off the road. However, before they could do so, the log calmly rose up and walked off the road and into the surrounding forest. The road was a good 20 feet wide, and as the head and tail of the creature had been obscured from view, by roadside grass, it must have been much longer. Yeah, you're talking a 30-footer there, man, maybe more.
It's crazy.
If just the body's 20 feet.
Yeah. And this is moving in 1978, the Atherton Range in Queensland. Further giant lizards are to be found in far north Queensland. While on an expedition to the Atherton Range inland from Cairns during June 1978, I was able to gather a number of accounts of a 15 to 20 foot or more giant monitor. These reptiles, say farmers who live on the fringes of the dense rainforest of the Kuranda district, are numerous, inhabiting the more remote regions of the forest seldom entertained by white man. They occasionally stray onto the farmland and have been known to attack livestock. So there's definitely a 70s Megalania sighting flap to some degree, at least comparatively.
Yeah, 60s and 70s really going on here.
Yep.
But it sounds like that's when they started going in and logging and developing these forests.
Yeah, chasing
that
these
maybe
things
they
further.
hadn't done that before, and all of a sudden they're waking these things up from their caves and sending them scattering everywhere.
Yep. And this is where the last few accounts get a little bit murkier from Rex as far as what year they occur. District in Cape Tree. The property owner approached a thick scrub on the outskirts of his property while searching for strayed stock one day. He heard what he thought to be stray cow breaking through the timber. However, upon dismounting to investigate, he caught sight through the trees of an enormous lizard, which he reckoned to be almost 30 feet in length. Turning to his horse, he left the area in haste. The next one is called Another Cape Tree Account.
Another account from the same district concerns a group of boys who, a few years ago, penetrated the mountainous terrain east of the township on a camping trip to swampland known to exist a few miles inland. Reaching the swamp, they made camp and remained there for 2 days. During this time, they did some exploring in countries seldom, if ever, seen by white men. However, upon returning to their camp they had erected near the swamp, they found numbers of large reptilian tracks only a couple of hours old. After that, they did not remain long in the area.
I don't blame them.
I get that. Dude, there's a dragon around here. We got to get out of here.
This one's entitled Giant Monitors Attacking Livestock. The giant monitors have been known to attack cattle, even humans, and although I have as yet not collected any report of them having eaten humans, the possibility cannot be ruled out. Megalania's cousin, the Komodo dragon of Java, is known to feed on goats among other animals. It's also been known in the past to have been killed and eaten shipwrecked sailors. So there are myths of that from back in the day.
I mean, it's a giant predator, man. It's opportunistic. If it's there's something easier to eat, they'll eat it. But if you're all that's there and they're hungry enough.
And this is a logger story, another fearsome critter-esque kind of thing. Stories of 30-foot giant monitors are a part of local folklore among the loggers of the Port Macquarie-Wakop district. And I do not know how to say that. Maquariewauchope. Give it a shot.
Macquarie-Wachope.
There you go.
Is how I would say that.
The New South Wales North Coast, who have claimed to have seen the creatures on many occasions in the more remote interior of the coastal forests. Many accounts of cattle being attacked by the beasts are known thereabouts. You want to read one from Arnhem Land, the Northern Territory?
Arnhem Land. Further reports of giant monitors have come from the Gulf country across into Arnhem Land, Northern Territory. The following report comes from Mr. Martin McAdoo of Manly. Goodness.
Yeah.
I don't know. That makes me believe it. You can't make this up.
This is a Python bit.
The following report comes from Mr. Martin McAdoo of Manly, North South Wales. About 9 years ago, he said, friends of his were driving their four-wheel drive vehicle along a dirt track in the Arnhem Land interior when they were suddenly forced to pull up. There in front of their four-wheel drive and standing upright upon a pair of powerful hind legs was an enormous monitor lizard standing 8 feet tall and with a tail fully 16 foot long. The beast suddenly turned and bounded off into the scrub upon its hind legs. The occupants of the vehicle judged its speed to be about 20 miles per hour.
Oh, and there's one additional report from Rex of a 15-footer spotted in the Blue Mountain region, but that brings the end to the Rex accounts. Mm-hmm. Those can be found on his website. Check it out. We'll be in the show notes.
And that last one, that sounds like the thing was getting ready for a fight. The truck was standing up, like stood up, getting ready for a fight.
Exactly.
And when it saw it, it's like, I don't even know what that is, and it ran away.
Exactly. And if you do have an oil tanker in the area, it might try to, if you're what's his name? Moore.
It does. If it wasn't for the fact that it was only one guy putting all these together, this would be, seem very consistent in the reportings.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just like anything else. You do a little research, and it always comes back to the original source. This is the same with Rex Gilroy. Everything seemed to kind of go back to these guys in these accounts. And yeah, that does. But if that's the norm out there, other people have to agree that that was the understanding, that those things were out there.
Right.
Is that true? And again, I always use the example of like finding Bigfoot. They go into a town hall and they say, how many people have seen a Bigfoot? And, 12 of the 40 people raised their hand. We need to know, out in Australia, people living in the 70s who are still alive today can attest as to whether that was, they heard the stories, they heard the rumors, or yes, Uncle Bob saw one.
I have some loose connections to Australia. I could start maybe pulling a couple strings and see if we can find somebody with some firsthand accounts, maybe.
Yeah, I think that would be a wonderful thing to return to, because it does seem like there's more accounts than I thought, but they are from the same source.
Can't promise anything, but I'll give it a shot.
And then this one is from Mysterious Australia from 1977. One day in 1977, teenage sisters Karen and Susan, name withheld, together with two boys, Alan Johnson and Tom Carroll, were walking along a jungle track in the mountain country near Townsville when they saw a huge reptile emerge 100 yards ahead of them from out of the dense forest on the edge of a swamp. "We took fright and hid behind some bushes watching the creature," said Karen to me some years later. "It looked just like a goanna, only it was far, far too big for that. Had a large goanna-like head, long neck, a huge, almost elephant-like body, enormous legs, and big claws, and a long, thick tail. The creature was covered throughout the large scales of a mottled gray color. It stood parallel with the swamp, and we estimate its length from head to tail to be a good 40 feet, and its height about 6 feet tall, standing on all fours. We watched as the monster began moving off, trampling foliage as it moved back into the forest. We then got out there fast. No one believes us to this day, but we know what we saw," she said. Obviously, this is true. The creature was some, if it's a monstrous goanna, it could be Megalania. Or it could be a giant goanna.
And that one's twice as big as the other ones, though. That's huge, even compared to all these other stories.
But my understanding is the Megalania is closer to a goanna than a Komodo as well.
Right,
so
right.
There's a little bit more of a similarity there.
Right.
And again, that was from Australian Giant Reptilian Monsters, Queensland Reports, MysteriousAustralia.com.
But it's almost like an in-between. It's a goanna-looking monitor, though.
Right. And that's more monitor. Goanna's more monitor. Parenti is more monitor.
Because I've had
Komodo's a little bulkier and a little bit of a different look.
Yeah. But that elephantine aspect of it, like when I watch videos, I've watched a lot of stuff on the Komodo dragon because it's cool. Mm-hmm. And like when you see its legs and feet up close, like I saw one where they, tranquilized it and were tagging it and stuff. Yeah. And they showed its feet. It totally looks like smaller, like an elephant leg, but smaller in a real way. Like the just kind of the thick lookingness and the skin of it and the thickness of it. So yeah, that kind of plays well with me too. That last one.
There you go. Here's one that Rex did, but I took this version of it from Megalania prisca, dragon of the Australian outback, the cryptozoologist. I thought it was a more detailed account. There is a story from Cessnock District about an incident said to have taken place in late December 1978. In a far paddock on his property, a farmer spotted a gigantic goanna-looking reptile ripping up a cow with its massive jaws and teeth. The farmer did not wish his name to be known, was in a Jeep at the time. He raced off for the house and phoned up at mates who, within the hour, descended on the property with their cattle dogs and pickups and Land Rovers armed with rifles. Location borders swampland on the edge of a thick forested valley and mountainous country, and it was from there that the monster had obviously emerged. By the time the search party arrived, all they could find was the half-eaten cow, much blood, and many large, indistinct tracks in the grassy ground. However, other squashed about tracks and the marks of a massive tail could be seen on the swamp edge leading into the water. Sorry, Godzilla. Yeah. The dogs as well as the men refused to go any further. Yeah. Using nearby fence posts to line up the creature at the time of his sightings, the farmer estimated that it was a good 35 feet, 10.6 meters in length, and 9 feet or so tall on all fours, counting the great body of the creature.
Wow.
And I think this is the one.
That just got 9 feet tall.
Well, I read that, and I think maybe that's what was happening when it was climbing over the fence. 35 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know. 35 feet so big, though. I don't know. I don't know if it, like I said, sometimes you get that sense of it was rearing up for a minute.
Right.
So now all of a sudden it's got a greater height.
Yeah.
Is that normally how high a 35-footer is? I don't know. Maybe.
I feel like that's way too tall.
Yes. They're usually
even if it is 35
feet
long. Like the last one said it was 40 feet long, 6 feet tall. At least proportionately, that feels right to me.
Yeah.
35 feet long and 9 feet high for a lizard, unless it was like arching its back.
That's what I'm
in
thinking.
An aggressive manner or something, like making itself look as big as it could.
Yeah.
Maybe then.
Because most people are describing a log that gets up and lumbers off.
Right,
and it's not higher than 2 or 3 feet.
Right.
So I don't know where the 35 comes from.
Well, like we said, some people's minds see it bigger.
Yep. And over to Papua New Guinea, which is a large island due north of Australia. This one is from Megalania, dragon of the Australian outback. The 1960s, this is the New Guinea sighting. This from cryptozoologist.com. Megalania might not be constrained only to Australia. Some sightings suggest it may live in New Guinea. A French priest in the 1960s was traveling upriver with a native guide in order to reach his mission. During the trip, he spotted a large lizard lying on a fallen tree in the sun. He told the native to stop, but being badly frightened, the native continued the journey. The priest returned to spot.
Always listen to the natives, man.
The priest returned to the spot the following morning and measured the tree. It was 40 feet long, yet the lizard almost matched it.
Wow. They just keep getting bigger.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these sightings have been, between 12 and 40 feet.
Well, because, you said you put these chronologically, right? Or pretty much?
Yeah, these last
as much
few,
as you could tell?
I did all the Rex ones as best as I could, and these last few are going back around because they're from different sources.
So these last
fews were from 77, and then 78. We're back to the 70s, and then 1960 was the New Guinea sighting.
Oh, okay, so it is more spread out. Okay.
Yep. But just before World War II, Claude and Ivan Champion led an expedition deep into the jungles of Papua New Guinea, where the natives told the tales of giant lizards that still lurk in the shadows and feed on human flesh. They seem to have heard this a lot during their journey. So there's another group that went into a jungle, and the natives again are saying there's a giant lizard that lives here, that this is part of the ecosystem.
That brings us back to the Gloucester sea serpent again.
Yep.
Episode 2, where the first recorded sighting of one of those things by a European, they were like, let's shoot it. And the natives they were with was like, you better not. If you don't kill it, it might kill us.
Yeah, exactly. Other evidence, again, according to Rex Gilroy, New South Wales petroglyphs depicting these. He says they're only, in his website, 3,000 years old. I don't know. These things range from, when they look at petroglyphs, they really range as to when these things actually were. But why do you paint a giant lizard next to hunters of, you have little hunters with spears and a giant lizard? It seems like they ran into this thing.
Yeah.
Regardless of when the petroglyph was actually painted.
Are there any pictures of them riding a giant lizard?
I know. You want to get to that. We're going to get to that.
We are. Okay, good.
There you go. There are rumors and rumblings of a partial skeleton recovery of Megalania, but that it was hushed by the mainstream archaeologists due to the carbon dating, suggesting the giant bones were only 300 years old. This is another
300.
This is another dubious account, but this is rumor and mystery surrounding the lore that there is another fuller version of the bones of Megalania, but that because of the age, it was something that the Smithsonian or whoever.
Well, they should carbon date it again because those tests do go wrong sometimes.
Well, we don't have that, and it's disappeared, and this is a dubious account.
If something contaminates the sample, it can throw off the result.
No, that's true. A Megalania footprint has been cast by none other than, you guessed it, Rex Gilroy in 1979. It was an impressive reptile print. And the size of the print puts the beast who made the Megalania size-wise anywhere from 25 to 40 feet, right where we have been seeing these.
Okay.
And, of course, the aforementioned eyewitness accounts, which leads back to the loggers, who seem to have many tales of such beasts within the oral traditions of the Aborigines themselves, of course, as well. It's all over the place, and this matches the print that was found, basically matches the size that we're talking about.
That's a fresh print?
This would have been in the 70s. No, this was
fresh print.
Yeah, Rex Gilroy during one of these sightings in the 70s went and
from one of those actual sightings.
Yeah,
okay.
I believe it was the one where the farmer comes and the thing's climbing off into the woods.
Right.
Rex Gilroy shows up, casts the print, and then shows the community. And this one has been analyzed by folks that and we'll get to that because they had a few things to say about it.
Okay.
So before we get to that, though, again, height, weight, and color, locomotion, we got this gray, we've got this green color, we've got a terrible smell associated with this beast. We have a wide range of height, a wide range of size, wide range of basically every proportion of the beast kind of varies.
That does all kind of fit in with lizard type creatures, though, because they do grow to their environment and their diet. Like you'll find vastly different sized adults of the same kind of lizard.
Right.
So, yeah, and I mean the colorations and the shape, and it all sounds, real enough in the detail as far as that goes anyway.
And so many people said goanna. I mean, that just came through over and over again. It didn't look like this lizard. They're getting very specific with what they're seeing.
Yeah.
Locomotion speed, some estimate this thing can go up to 20 miles an hour.
That's wild. If it's that big, though, why not, right?
Yep. Fleshy spines a few inches high, which extend on the back and down the neck of the creature, has also been seen. One account claims the locals believe the giant lizard feeds at dusk. Best defense, this is one of our new favorites now. I would bring a pack of Aboriginals with spears because they seem to do pretty good. Somebody survived to do the petroglyph. I mean, that's proof positive, right?
Yeah, Aboriginal shaman with some spearmen, yeah.
Yep. Or you pack this group of mythical animals who are going to trap it like the other ones did and smoke it out and then drown it. Mm-hmm. So either one would work, I guess.
My best defense against Megalania, bat squatch.
You can't train a bat squatch to fight another cryptid.
It's going to be King Kong versus Godzilla in real life, man. I don't know if bat squatch will win. I just want to see the fight.
But you have to bring it in a cage and I guess just open it up if you see one. Yeah. And then you're running away from two. You hope they fight and run away. It's like the plot of every Japanese horror movie. Like let the monsters fight. Yeah.
The humans are just the bystanders. They don't really have anything to do with it.
Well, I'm going to bring Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, good call, dude.
Guy with big sword that fights dragons, I think that's where I'm going.
It's a good call. Yeah. It's a good call.
We have to decide, though, does the other person get to bring a famous... I think you should. I think the other person should be able to just...
Yeah, I just did mine. I'm bringing bat squatch.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. But you didn't use... We were mad because we all wanted to use Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. And once those are gone, we didn't know who
if I could use Bruce Lee every time, I would, because the guy was like, he'll kill anything that comes at him. You can't touch him.
But your argument is we're going to go through all the superheroes too quick.
That's why I used bat squatch.
Yeah, so you're getting clever with it.
Yeah.
There you go.
But it's the cryptid version of King Kong versus Godzilla. It's brilliant, really. I want to see that. I would go see that in the theater.
You're bringing a cage, and you can unlock bat squatch if you see one of these Megalanias. That's
correct.
Your plan. Okay,
correct.
So works for me.
Make sure the bat squatch is hungry.
We usually don't have US files for ones we haven't had anything to see, but I just want to ask if you have any related giant lizard stories.
But then something happened. It happened to me.
I had a buddy in college. I won't name any names because I'm not sure if you'd want me to, but I had a fraternity brother in college who had a pet iguana that lived in his closet. The thing literally got like 6.5 feet long. It was longer than I was tall.
Wow.
It was huge.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I had this thought earlier in this episode where if I saw that lizard come running out of a bush at me really fast, I would scream and run away and be like, there's a dragon over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Some of this is just shock and surprise.
It was probably 6.5 feet long. If it was running at you out of nowhere, you would have said it was 10.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, I saw a Komodo dragon live, but only because it was in a Berlin, I walked in somewhere. It was a giant aquarium, 2 6-foot Komodo dragons, and they were monstrous beasts to see within a couple of glass inches from you.
There's also the Nile crocodile at the Mandalay Bay in Vegas.
Yes.
That's a great aquarium.
Yep.
It's one of my favorite things in Vegas, actually, Mandalay Bay's aquarium.
I would agree. That's a good one. Lots of sharks and lots of stingrays. And cool
Do you remember the Nile crocodile?
Mm-hmm.
Think friggin' huge.
Yeah. It was a big...
friggin' huge.
Yep. That's a great show. That's a great aquarium. Well worth down at the end of the strip.
Yep.
I've also worn a Komodo once. I guess that's the only other US file thing.
That's a kimono.
Oh.
Not a Komodo.
Okay. Well, then moving on.
And make sure it's silk. I've always wanted a silken kimono. I feel like it would feel really nice to wrap yourself in one of those.
I did see a 3-foot chuckwalla, too, also, by the way.
Chuckwalla?
Yeah, the two biggest in the Southwest are the Gila monster and the chuckwalla get to be 3 feet long. And I saw a 3-foot chuckwalla. And the reason I know they get to be 3 feet, I said, I saw a 3-foot chuckwalla, looked it up, found that is as big as they get. It was
Wow.
the Valley of Fire in Nevada, basically.
That makes sense.
So there's some big ones running around our parts as well. Not 6 foot, but it was still a dang big lizard. And again, you just said a story about a 6.5 foot lizard. My 3-foot lizard story was a big one.
Yeah.
And again, yours is doubling that as a pet.
As a pet, yeah. And I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah. I
got 30 guys that'll back me up on
Yep.
that to be like, yep, that was about 6.5 feet long.
Yeah. There you go. That's scary stuff.
Yeah. You
So-
should have seen how much that lizard ate. Like, he'd drop like a whole head of lettuce in there and it would just be gone. It's
Wow.
crazy. It's crazy.
Dang. That's awesome. So anyway, we moving on to some theories. We mentioned a couple today already. What were they?
Oh boy, I don't even remember now. It's been
We
a
had-
long road here.
We had some thoughts.
Oh, the giant water lizard lives mostly in the water. That was one theory.
One theory is that's why we don't see these things.
Yeah.
But they're seen in the forest, they're seen in the desert, they're seen a lot along the coast. It's true. So
Yeah, a
those
lot of
could
them were
be water
coastal.
ones.
Forest and coast. So maybe
Yeah.
caves,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of caves on the coast.
Mhm.
The rocky coasts will have a lot of caves,
Yeah.
forests and mountains.
Yeah.
So maybe they're cave dweller.
Yeah, a cave. Some of them disappeared in the ground. The Lothargoon came up and ate and dragged people back.
Yeah,
know,
that too.
Swamps and other water. It doesn't have to be an ocean. It could be a river or a lake that
Right.
these things are disappearing into. Back
And
to
it sounds like they're pretty well camouflaged because everybody's like, oh, look at that fallen tree. And then it gets up and starts walking. So it sounds like it's well camouflaged for that as well. Like if it holds still, you don't even realize it's a creature. You just think it's part of the forest.
Yeah, it reminds me of, as I read all these cryptid encounters, there was always this one that got me from Mark Hall's story of from the Big Hoot his Big Hoot chapter, where there's this 4-foot owl. People just thought it was a stump that went 4 foot high.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything. The thing was very close to them until it turned its head. They thought they were staring at just a stump.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Animals camouflage is amazing, dude.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yep. Well, old Rex does have a theory. He does not believe, or at least he weighs in. He does not believe that this is the parente. He does not think this is the culprit. And he says this on Cessnock's fantastic 30-foot lizard monsters back to his site at mysteriousaustralia.com. These monitors are not found east of the Great Dividing Range and are only known to areas 300 miles west of the Dividing Range. They're not found in Victoria, but only in Western Queensland, the Northern Territory, Southern Australia, and Western Australia. So he's saying they're not indigenous anywhere within 300 miles, but we're talking about things that have never been seen in some ways. So in some ways, that doesn't.
Right.
I don't know how much water that holds, actually.
Comes back to that Dr. Arnett's imagination conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
You take what facts you have and you fill in the rest with imagination.
That's right. So, Jeremy, you got one more reading, though, for some of our theories. This is from mythology.net.
While many people continue to deny the possibility of a Megalania existing in modern day, there seems to be considerable evidence that would support a slight possibility for the survival of the creature. Many people who believe in the Megalania often voice theories like parthenogenesis when discussing ways the creature could have survived into modern day. There are also people who believe the Megalania could have survived outside of Australia as well. They often point to Indonesia and surrounding islands as a possible answer because many of the islands are uninhabited and largely unexplored. Others are quick to point out that while Australia has been mapped out in its entirety by aerial shots, there is still much land that hasn't been explored on foot. Much of this land is largely inaccessible by foot or with machinery, but it wouldn't be impossible for megafauna like Megalania to exist in these regions. That's what I was saying. If there's anywhere these things could be, it's the outback.
Yep, you already were there before mythology.net.
Yep, that's exactly what I was saying. They just said it better.
But we always hear this parthenogenesis piece as to why you have the Scully Muggle saying, we've got this, you don't have a breeding population, you've got that problem. And then we have people saying, well, parthenogenesis, which can only be used once in a while as a fluky kind of asexual reproduction moment. Crocodiles, they always say it with, and they always say it with lizards.
The virgin
snakes.
birth concept.
Yeah, and you can only get away with it so many generations, and it's not really an answer.
Right.
Unless parthenogenesis takes it a lot further, like we don't know everything about these creatures.
Yeah. And things like, how long does it live? If it has a long life cycle and it only breeds once, you don't really need that huge of a population, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. I give some credit to the parthenogenic people. I think that could be part of the answer, but I don't think it's the complete answer. But what do we know?
Yeah. Life finds
a way. Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, it's very Jurassic Park here.
There you go.
Is Australia Jurassic Park?
It's closest, one of the closest places we have to Jurassic Park.
There you go.
That's for sure.
You want a survival tip for Australia?
All right.
Never go in water if there's kangaroo in the water, because they will drown you.
Wow. Yeah, they're like all those other that could be the bunyip.
Yeah.
These things stand by the water, they grab you, they pull you, and they drown you.
That's exactly what a kangaroo will do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
If they're in the water, it's because they're waiting for you to come in so they can drown you.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really a really cute little rodent they have there.
Yeah, they're like the hippo of Australia, those kangaroo.
Oh, nice.
They will mess with you, man.
Australia's got so many things. Just wants to kill you.
Yeah, it just wants to kill you.
Yeah.
The deserts in general. I learned that when I moved to Arizona from New England. That the desert really just wants to kill you and take your resources. It wants your water. It's very dune. Just wants your water.
Well, it says there's 1,000 ways the desert can kill you, and it seems about right.
If you respect it, it won't. But you have to know that it wants to kill you and eat you.
Yeah. Be aware. Keep your wits about you.
In Australia, I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but for the most part, it's a giant desert.
Yeah.
That whole outback is a giant desert.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 90% desert, that continent.
But everything we have, they seem to have something a little more poisonous, a little faster, a little more nasty.
Yeah. All those snakes in the snakes,
jellyfish
and spiders.
that'll kill you, and more sharks that'll kill you. Everything, insects and spiders, and then New Zealand's hanging out 1,000 miles away. They got nothing.
They got sheep.
Yeah, they got sheep.
Yeah,
you got a sheep problem there. You do. It's an infestation.
Has there ever been a sheep squatch sighting in New Zealand?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm going to have to get into that.
That is a Heartland thing, but yeah.
I'll do that next season.
Yeah, I'm going to do Goat Man, so we'll have to.
Ooh, Goat Man and Sheep Squatch might have to be the same episode.
I have so much on Goat Man that I think something's going to happen.
Cool.
When we hit critical mass with Goat Man, we're going there.
Nice.
Which brings us to our Ahuguano file.
Ahuguano Theory of the Week. Oh no, here it comes! Quick, to the batshit signal.
I'm thinking it's your buddy who you wouldn't name's Iguana. That's my Ahuguano iguana file.
Well, if that thing has lived this long and kept growing, it would be 30 feet by now, because that was like 30 years ago.
Yeah, we got to find how old it was. We got to get your friend on. I mean, you didn't say he didn't want to do it. You just weren't sure.
Yeah.
I had a friend who had an iguana, and I'll say his name, but it wasn't as big, so I'm not gonna. It was a normal-sized iguana.
Yeah.
That is not a normal-sized pet iguana.
No, it was huge. It was absolutely huge.
Yeah. So that has to be the top end of
like, it was hard to pick
pet.
up. Like, it was so heavy, it was hard to pick up.
Yeah. We almost have to do an old business to see what is the largest pet iguana, because that sounds like it would be about that.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he ended up like giving it to a pet store just to display in their window, like not even to sell, just like as an attraction for people come to see. Like that's how big it was.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think you just bring it to like a toddler birthday party, give them spears.
Yeah.
And we could do a petroglyph reenactment.
No, it is a good point though, the petroglyph thing, and it's hard to deny when people drew pictures of it within that time frame. You know what I mean?
Well, the fossil record matches when they were around in Australia, not New Zealand, but in Australia we have 50,000 years of Aboriginals. We have 40,000 years. We have 10,000 years where they were
of overlap. And that's real fossil record documentation.
Right.
But again, things, fossilization only happens in certain places with the very specific conditions, with the right mud and stuff to fall into.
They likely had a much larger time to cohabitate.
Right. And there's no reason they couldn't have kept existing. They just stopped fossilizing because the area no longer fossilizes things. The ground hardened or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
And one of the theories I came across in my readings is that mankind is the reason that Megalania went extinct. Now we have Sir Richard Scullymuggel's Skeptics Review.
Ooh, dun dun dun.
You're full of crap, and that's the nicest thing that I can say.
Most scientists believe the megafauna all died off by the end of the last ice age, 11,000 years or so ago, and thus far there's no evidence of Megalania past 40,000 years, so that they're kind of standing by their guns here. Megalania was believed to have gone extinct due to lack of food. Some researchers like Dr. Gilbert Price and many others believe the arrival of the Aboriginals may have played a role in Megalania's demise. Pretty badass, but natives interacted with these things, which, again, pretty darn cool.
And you could see why, almost like what, in the U.S. here, when we settled the West, what we did to the wolves, just killing them off because they would, kill our livestock. They were, bad for our progress. Mm-hmm. So we killed them all off.
Yep.
That could be a similar thing. People show up in Australia and it looks like a good enough place except for these giant lizards running around eating their cattle and, tearing up their land or whatever it might be. So they just kill them off until they're not a problem anymore. But the problem is there's only so many of them to begin with.
Yeah.
And one of them can cause so much problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see how humans could be responsible for that in that case.
Well, I mean, they were on the food list, so I think you
and that too.
You could feed your village for a month, but you also were losing people if you didn't get these things.
Yeah, and if it was a limited population to begin with, then it'd be real easy to kill them off.
And our Scullymuggle of the moment, John Long, is a paleontologist with the Museum of Victoria in Melbourne. He believes that in order to survive, Megalania prisca would need to have had, again, the large breeding population.
Right.
That would be hard to hide due to their monstrous size. Always the Scullymuggle when they're breeding populations.
Again, I don't necessarily buy that argument, because if they're egg layers, because lizards lay eggs, right?
Yeah.
What if they lay 20 eggs at a time?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to know more about it before that argument will stick with me. There's a lot of arguments against this thing that I will give you credit for.
Yeah.
But that one, it's like you don't know enough to say the reproduction cycle. Yeah. And like how big of a population you would really need and how much that would really make it visible.
Exactly.
There's too many variables to that.
Yep. And again, the Moria track was the 1979 farmer sighting that Rex Gilroy actually casted. That was the 12 inches across. And the details were a paleontologist on Monster Quest Season 2, Episode 19, Real Dragons, reviewed those tracks. He points out the difference between the second and third digit again, which was elongated. On Megalania, Rex's print is totally symmetrical. All the digits are about the same size, which makes the print suspect or a different species.
But it's still really big.
Yes.
So it's still some kind of huge lizard.
Could be a huge. He did not rule that out. He just did.
Just not the exact one you're talking about. Like, it's just a different one than you thought you were looking for.
Right. And the last Scullymuggle, we won't go over it again, but just people get the sizes wrong, as we talked about. So.
It's a 12-foot lizard and freaks you out so much that you think it's 20 kind of thing. Yep.
And as for the Scullymulder believability scale, they feel your methods, your theories are
spooky. Do you think I'm spooky?
Wait, why am I Scully? Megalania, obviously a 10. It's in the fossil record.
Oh, yeah.
This is, Titanic and toast.
This is a real-life monster. This is like real-life Godzilla almost.
Yep. Megalania specifically today, I'm in the 1-2 just because even the existing prints don't seem to match it. It is the one we know got that big, though. As for other giant lizard, slightly bigger than known, I'm at an 8. We don't know what the biggest one is. I would say an 8 even for something 2 feet to 3 feet longer than we've currently come across. So
Oh,
if you have
sure.
a goanna that's you've seen an 8 or 9 foot one, I bet there's an 11 or 12 foot one out there.
Oh, easy. I'll go a 10 on a 12-footer.
Yeah.
They're out there.
They're
like
out
if
there.
we know for a fact, like regularly, they get up to 9 feet.
Those are the biggest.
Oh, I know. But there have been 12-foot ones.
Yeah.
That they're the outliers, like the Andre the Giants of the dragon world. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm full on that. As far as actual Megalania, I'm gonna give them a 5. I'm going even money on that one.
There you go. Whether it's Megalania, 5. Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Because if there's things survive so much more than we think. Creatures we think are extinct suddenly exist again a lot too. As much as we do extinct a lot of creatures and things do die off. That's just evolution, baby. But at the same time, things that so many examples of it recently in the news of, oh yeah, this creature that we thought was extinct for the last 300 years. Someone just saw one.
Yeah.
Like full on just saw one, got a picture of it. We know it's still a thing.
Yeah.
So I guess it's not extinct. But we've thought it was extinct for literally hundreds of years. And all of a sudden, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So I give it even money on the Megalania still being around, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I always use the same examples. I apologize if I've done this one, but they always said the Territorns, you can't have a bird with a wingspan that big, it won't fly. Then they find the Territorns and they're like, oh, there is an 18-foot one that will fly. Okay, then maybe they exist. Then all of a sudden it's possible, right?
Right.
It's easy to say nay. It's not as easy. I think if a family of goannas did particularly well at hunting, maybe we have a slightly bigger goanna out there.
Every generation gets a little bigger, a little bigger, a little bigger. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason why that couldn't happen.
But as for the Scully Muggles, to take a moment in their shoes, this is a very large thing. And even though there's not a ton of people in certain areas, you'd think you'd still run across this more. And the 70s flap seems to have ended most of the sightings. There's not a ton of sightings since then.
Right. And the bigger something gets, just genetically speaking, the bigger something gets, the harder it is for it to survive.
Yeah.
The harder it. That's why Andre the Giant only lived to like 46 years old.
Yeah.
Because his body shut down on him.
Yeah.
Early because it was just too big. Things kept growing. And
Giantism, bad.
Right. So, yeah, definitely a lot of arguments against it. But I don't think you can fully debunk that there may be giant lizards roaming around in the outback.
It's just one of my favorite because, again, you mentioned we used this. The coelacanth was millions of years old. They find one. There was a gap in the fossil record, millions of years.
Yeah, there you go.
This is only 40,000. So
great example there. Actually,
a lot closer. So there's a lot. Even though there's not a ton of accounts, there was a lot. The reason we went through so many accounts today was more than I thought.
Right.
And I've seen these shows, but
there's
this was kind of all of the main ones.
What are they? I forget the term for it, but there's a thing like I just watched a video the other day about this. Horseshoe crabs, for example.
Yeah.
There are fossils that look like hundreds of millions of years old or whatever, 100+ million years old, that look just like horseshoe crabs.
Are we talking trilobites?
But they're not, no, like the actual crab with the big thing sticking off it. But they're not actually horseshoe crabs. Morphologically, they look almost exactly alike. Yeah. But like actually molecularly, genetically, they're not actually the same creature at all.
Wow. Yeah.
Their physiology is different and whatnot. But the look of them, the shape.
Yeah. Because
when that old one died out, something else had to come along to fill the niche, and it actually ended up looking the same to fill that niche, but its physiology, biology, anatomy inside that shell is different.
Mother Nature mimics.
So again, maybe may well not be the actual Megalania still walking around, but something else came up to fill that niche that the Megalania used to fill in that environment.
Yepper. No argument there.
I'm giving it a 5. I'm giving it even money.
Nice. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope there are more sightings. This is such a cool thing.
Yeah.
So we're going to finish up with just our Wolfman Puck, as usually where we're wrapping
Wolfman
things.
Puck's Cryptid Culinary Corner.
Your entree, sir. Smells good.
So I'm going to build the Guinness Book of World Record size Traeger smoker. I'm going to just attach these again, get some welder friends together and just make this huge Traeger in the backyard. Then I'm stuffing this entire bus-sized lizard into that monster smoker with some applewood and hickory pellets, smoke it up nice. I'm going to make a mega Traegerlania, a barbecue extravaganza, and I'm going to serve it with jalapeno poppers with what? A giant jar of lizard sauce.
What is lizard sauce?
You never had poppers and lizard sauce?
I don't know what lizard sauce is.
Let's go in TGI Fridays and
that's why.
No, that's just one example. But jalapeno poppers, you dip them in lizard sauce.
Is that an Arizona thing I still don't know about after 20 years?
No, I would say I first learned about such things.
What does lizard sauce taste like?
It's a jelly, basically.
Gross.
No, if you dip it in, it's a spicy jelly and a spicy popper, and it's actually really wonderful.
Like a jalapeno jelly kind of thing.
And even though you don't like lizard sauce, the beer on tap today will be Grogzilla. It's my own creation, and I'm going to make this by fermenting some of that lizard sauce because I made way too much for the barbecue. So I'm going to ferment it, make that Grogzilla beer, serve it with my, Mega Traegerlania.
All right.
That's what we're doing. Top that.
Wow. Okay. I guess I should have known the basket ingredient ahead of time on this one, considering it's just a giant lizard. All right. It's Australia, though.
Ooh, yeah.
So I'm going to I'm going to slice up the lizard into thin little strips.
Thin Lizzy.
And get some veggies and get some skewers and make some lizard kebabs to throw on the barbie.
There you go.
And serve it with Foster's because it's Australian for beer.
Yeah, I skipped that because I thought it was tripe and derivative. But yeah, I mean Foster's is
I didn't prepare.
We usually win when you don't prepare.
I know. I phoned that one in. I really do want some lizard kebabs now, though. That actually sounds really good.
There you go.
We should make some kebabs for dinner.
We got to invite, hey, you know who I'd also use for best defense against giant lizards?
Who's that?
Alex Bone and Eva Rupert, our friend from Naked and Afraid.
Yeah,
she had to fight some monkeys and lizards and stuff. So, yeah.
We should have brought her on for this one.
That
would have been good.
Yeah.
We should get her on the podcast at some point.
I know. Yeah, I've already kind of interviewed her about monsters.
She's a Scully muggle, though, right? She's not a big believer in this stuff, I don't think.
Yeah, it went to I will tell one of the lines. I was like, so did you see any roping when you were in Madagascar? And she's like, no, like pterodactyls. And I said, well, you weren't looking, were you? And she's like, no, because they're not there. It went kind of like that.
So maybe not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
I'm going to give some mad kujos to Eva Rupert, though. Mad kujos, Eva.
Woo!
Down, boy!
It's the closest thing I know to a Flagstaff celebrity.
There you go. Well,
and she's definitely got some celebrity status.
Oh, yeah.
At some level.
I would say.
First ever female on Naked and Afraid.
Nice.
From Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yipper. She was in a couple. She was in 2.5 episodes or something.
I hope she doesn't sue us for talking about her. All good things, though, Eva. All good things.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyhow, so I guess that's it for the Megalania. Anything to add or subvert before we go, Moss?
Oh, she did say we can't do an interview. I have her recorded as saying, I would rather have a pack of howler monkeys flinging feces at me than be interviewed by you again.
That sounds about right. In true Eva Rupert fashion. Well done, Eva. I'm so glad I gave her mad kujos. If I hadn't already, I would right now. And on that note, we're going to get out of here. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on this round of the Monster Lore Tour. We will be back next Tuesday with another episode for you. Until then, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Monster Lore Tour. You can join for just $1. You get early release of episodes, and the side trails come out right along with the episode. So you don't have to wait for those compilations every few weeks. And it really helps out the podcast. You'd be surprised how much $1 can help if we start getting enough people to join up on that. So if you're enjoying what you're hearing, please come along, patreon.com/Monster Lore Tour. If you have just a second, hit that like, share, subscribe, all that stuff for us. I'm going to stop talking now. Thanks again. Till next week. Have a good one, listener.
Monster Lore Tour Podcast.
Sorry, once I put these headphones on, I am an asshole producer. Just so you know.
And then he transitions to asshole friend when the microphones are off.
Correct.